Do you struggle with letting go of the outcome? Do you find yourself stuck in situations where you're trying to control the things that you do or the things that you say in order to elicit the type of outcome that you want to happen or that you think should happen? This might be something that you're engaging in unconsciously because of your fear, anxiety, and nervousness. And it's something that I want to talk about in today's episode because it's a topic that comes up often when I'm working with my clients. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, how you can practice letting go of the outcome so that you can decrease your stress and anxiety. Welcome to Calmly Coping. I'm your host, Tati Garcia. I'm a licensed therapist and a high-functioning anxiety coach. Calmly Coping is the podcast for people who struggle with anxiety and high-functioning anxiety. Each Wednesday, you'll hear informative episodes with actionable tips about decreasing anxiety, adopting a healthy mindset, and managing your time and energy so you can live a calm and balanced life. Let's get started. This is episode number 54, How to Let Go of the Outcome. Thanks so much for listening, and if you are a returning listener, thanks so much for coming back. And quickly before we get into today's episode, I want to talk about the sponsor for this episode. This episode is sponsored by my free masterclass, How to Let Go of Overthinking and Self-Doubt so you can become more calm and confident. This is a free on-demand training for high achievers who struggle with overthinking and self-doubt. In this free masterclass, you'll learn how to get out of negative thinking spirals so you can think more positively and calmly, how to stop your emotions from controlling your day, how to be more intentional and effective with your time to improve your mood, and how to shift your mindset so you can cope with whatever comes your way with confidence. To enroll in this free masterclass, go to calmlycoping.com/masterclass. You can also find the link in the show notes. So I want you to reflect on if you've ever caught yourself in a scenario like this, where you're overthinking something that's going to happen. Maybe it's a meeting that you're feeling nervous about. Maybe it's a presentation. Maybe it's a conversation with a partner or a friend or a family member. And you can't stop overthinking and rehearsing things mentally because you want to make sure that you're prepared for it and you want to try and avoid any sort of, whether it's conflict or failure on your end, depending on the situation. So you so badly want things to turn out a certain way, like you want to do well on your presentation, if that's the scenario, or you want to work things out and not have any conflict with another person, whether it's a coworker, family member. So you're trying so hard to rehearse things so that you can try and avoid anything that's going to result in those negative outcomes. So as a result, your overthinking is creating more stress. It might lead to anxiety and feelings like you're out of control or like you're extremely worried and preoccupied with the situation that's going to come up. And it's going to make you feel more nervous in the situation. So it's going to make you feel this kind of overhead pressure on top of your experience because you have all of these shoulds and expectations and fears as to what can go wrong because you've already been rehearsing them mentally over the past few days or weeks or hours, depending on how long it's been. So if this is something that you can relate to, then you're definitely not alone. And this is a common occurrence that people with high functioning anxiety can struggle with. And just in general, people might struggle with when they have something that's coming up that is something that is making them anxious, or they're uncertain of the outcome, or they feel like they want to control what's going to happen. And that's when it's so important to focus on letting go of the outcome. Because the reality is that no matter how you present yourself or what you do, you cannot control what happens. You cannot control how other people respond to you. You cannot control what other people think of you. You can only control yourself. The way that you think, the way that you behave, and the way that you feel about things. And that's really an important concept to understand when it comes to letting go of the outcome and letting go in general. So when you're looking at a situation and you find yourself in that place where you want things so badly to turn out a certain way, or you want so badly to avoid a certain outcome that then it's creating this internal pressure, resistance, and stress and anxiety for you, then you are probably caught up in this scenario of trying to control the outcome. So again, to repeat, you cannot control anything outside of yourself. And so I think it's important to first bring awareness to situations where you may be doing this, because sometimes it can be hard to bring awareness and to actually even realize that you're doing it. I know that I experience this with myself, and sometimes I'm not even aware that I've been doing this until I notice it a few days or hours after I've been stressing about a certain situation. And that's the most important step, is to first catch yourself. In any of the methods and techniques that I'm teaching you, that is the first step, is that awareness and catching yourself, and is the most important part. Because if you do not catch yourself and if you do not recognize that it's happening, then you're not going to be able to change it. So step number 1, like I said, that's catching yourself and having awareness that you're stuck in these scenarios where you're trying to control the outcome. And this might look like overthinking things before they happen. It might look like feeling pressure to behave or do things a certain way to avoid a certain outcome that you don't want to see happen. It might look like feeling rigid and pressured that things have to occur a certain way, otherwise things are going to fall apart or you're going to fail. So those are just a few examples of what this might look like. It can also look like perfectionistic behavior and overthinking things and getting into that paralysis by analysis, where you're wanting things to turn out a certain way or wanting things to turn out perfectly because you're convinced that that's the only way that it's going to be good enough, or that you're not going to fail, or that other people won't judge you for. So after you have caught yourself, that's when it's important to then step 2 is to focus on what you can control. So I like to think of just reflecting on the idea that you can only control yourself. So if you find yourself, maybe whether it's consciously or unconsciously, trying to control the future, trying to control what other people might feel or how they might react to what you're doing, trying to control the grade you get or the response that you get, those are all examples of focusing on what you can't control, which is impossible. Then, after you've caught yourself, that second step is reframing and remembering that you can only control yourself, and focusing on what you can do and how you can approach the situation from a place of focusing on yourself and not focusing on, well, what are people going to think of what I do or how I say things, or what is the outcome of this situation going to be, but just returning that focus to yourself. Step 3 that I think is really important, that is often difficult to do because of our negativity bias that we have as humans, which is that tendency to focus on the negative. But this step is to actually imagine if things went well, or imagine what it would be like if you were successful, or imagine what it would be like if the conversation went well, or your project or your presentation went well, whatever it is. So this can be a helpful step to help you to see things from a different perspective, as opposed to anticipating the worst case scenario and fearing what's going to happen that could be potentially bad. You're reframing your mindset to think of, well, what could go well? What would happen if I did things well and I didn't have to put pressure on myself to succeed, but I could just show up as I am authentically, of course, having prepared depending on what the situation is, but what would it be like if things went well for me? And so I want you to ask yourself that question as well, to try and reframe and overcome that negativity bias so you can start practicing focusing on the positive. Step number 4 that I think can be helpful in this process of letting go, if you find that it's really hard to stop thinking about it, or to stop anticipating what's going to happen, or to stop focusing on those things that you can't control, is to use a positive coping mechanism that's going to keep you focused or distracted. And so what I mean by this is to do something that's going to put you in a state of focus or flow. Flow is essentially a state where you're focused on the present moment and you're not distracted by other thoughts, but you're fully engaged in what you're doing. So that might be different things for different people. Maybe you really like playing an instrument, or maybe you really like going for a walk outside. For me recently, it's been going rollerblading at the park. And, maybe it's even just watching a TV show that you enjoy, or spending time with a friend or with a family member, trying to do something that's going to keep you focused and engaged so that you're not constantly just sitting down and thinking and focusing about this thing that's coming up that you cannot control. And then step number 5 that I think is really important is to focus on taking things one step at a time. Do whatever you can personally to prepare, but once you've done everything that you can to prepare, then it's important to practice that letting go and adjusting your focus, reminding yourself, I've done everything that I can to prepare. I can't change the past or what I haven't been able to do. I can't control the way that other people see me. I can't control the outcome of this situation. I can only control what I do. I can only control the effort that I put in from this point forward, and that's it. So that's when it's important to remind yourself of that and doing whatever you can to prepare. So maybe that's writing a list down of what you have to do to prepare just as that first step. Maybe it's doing some brainstorming and getting things out of your head if it's a conversation that you have to have with somebody, or if it's a presentation or a project, maybe it is preparing the outline. So doing whatever it is that you can personally do to prepare, and then practicing self-talk so that you're going to remind yourself when those thoughts do come up. I've done everything I can do to prepare. I can't control the outcome, so I'm going to focus on other things moving forward. So letting go of the outcome is a skill that you can learn. You have learned to do things another way and to overthink things because that's been helpful for you in the past. But at this point in your life, it's no longer helping you, and it's causing you more stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. So I know that you can learn a new way of thinking and a new way of behaving. So that's what I want you to look at this as though you're learning a new skill of letting go of the outcome and of changing the way that you're thinking about things. And it is totally possible if you do it step by step and little by little and focus on your wins. Just catching yourself is a win and is progress. And I know that this is something that you can do with time and consistency. So your action tip is to take these steps, review the episode, take what works for you and what resonates with you, and leave the rest. And if you're a high achiever and you're interested in diving deeper and getting one-to-one support and accountability to help you reach your goals while decreasing overwhelm, anxiety, and overthinking so that you can maximize your potential, then you can learn more about working with me at calmlycoping.com/coaching. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this episode. You can share your thoughts with me by leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can rate a review and just let me know what you think, because it really helps me out. And while you wait for next week's episode, I have other episodes about decreasing anxiety, adopting a healthy mindset, and managing your time and energy. Thanks so much for tuning in today. And until next time, be calm. Thanks so much for listening. If you like what you heard, please share this episode with a friend, and please subscribe and leave me a review on iTunes. Also, remember to check me out online at calmlycoping.com and connect with me on Instagram at TatianaGLPC. All content here is for informational purposes only. This content does not replace the professional judgment of your own mental health provider. Please consult a licensed mental health professional for all individual questions and issues. Till next time, I'm Tati, and this has been Calmly Coping.